Cheers.
Cheers. Hey everyone, welcome to
Creative Happy Hour.
Yay, where we get drunk
On the creative possibilities.
Yes, we do. Welcome to today's episode where we drink
The Greyhound.
the Greyhound. And just like it sounds, the Greyhound is something that can be sipped down super fast. And yes, it was invented for a restaurant that's in the Greyhound bus station. We did not make this according to the original recipe, which called for canned grapefruit juice. Couldn't even find some of that.
You can't even find that shit. Where do you find that?
Somewhere near a Greyhound bus station.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't shop at places like that. I hate to break it to you.
I know. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't. So the original recipe called for grapefruit juice that was canned, sugar, nasty ass vodka, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that. We did good vodka.
Yes.
We did grapefruit juice that was
simply
fresh and wonderful.
Yeah, simply grapefruit.
And we added a tiny bit of sparkling water just for
a little effervescent.
Oof. Yeah, we're feeling effervescent.
Yeah.
So
we need to feel effervescent.
We do. So we're going to be talking about the Greyhound in the concept of how it is, fast versus slow creativity.
Yes.
Right. So why sometimes taking that slow bus of creativity is a good thing, and why delayed gratification does feed your creative soul, and why sometimes getting everything you want right away in terms of creativity is not a good thing. So it's going to make you feel better, makes us feel better.
Yeah.
And we're going to say cheers to you and have a taste of this fabulous cocktail. Let's go. Well, I mean, it's a freaking Greyhound, right? What is there to say about it?
I mean, the Greyhound was one of those drinks that, like, in the 80s, my stepmother would make them, and I thought they were
like a Kid Cod, like super sophisticated. You're
yeah,
like, oh
I always thought they were kind of sophisticated.
You did not know that it was originally from a Greyhound bus station?
No, I mean, I didn't even really understand how white trash it is. I grew up in Appalachia where it's like very white trashy.
I think we both have, little white trash nuggets
to
her. Yeah, right? You're like, ew. Now, what the hell? And we actually put a big rock in it to make it that much more shishi.
Yeah,
this
is NorCal style.
Right? It is NorCal style, but it still just tastes basically like freaking grapefruit juice.
It's the same drink. It doesn't matter what you do.
No,
you cannot make this drink fancy.
Well, you can actually. So I saw somebody make one with gin, which would be better.
Yeah, it would be better.
It would be with rosemary.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then I was like, if you could really get...
And they called it a Greyhound?
A Greyhound. So, yeah, they called it a Greyhound, but they're like, this is just not the nastiest
So it's
Greyhound.
just the grapefruit?
It's a better
makes it Greyhound?
Well, so, yes. So the Greyhound, I guess, was because of that recipe, but then there are variations on that recipe, which I kind of love. So they've got the salty dog, which is a Greyhound with salt on the rim. And I was like...
I would like that.
I know. And you know why they put... So I was like, why did they put... I mean, why is it such a popular thing to put salt on the rim of cocktails? You know what? It's because it tasted so bad.
Well, yeah, they tasted really bad, but I mean, I can think how maybe if you were, I mean, where I grew up, we would put salt on watermelon.
Yes, which is yummy.
Yeah,
I like the balance.
I wonder if it had something to do with like helping people stay hydrated. I don't know.
Oh, that too. Yeah, maybe. And also it just helps the flavor generally. Yeah. So you have, let me look at, So you've got because normally the gin Greyhound is actually the original one. They didn't use vodka for very many things early on until like 1945, I think. And then they're like, oh.
It's a more kind of purified, I don't know.
Ethanol.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what the fuck it is. But yes.
Yeah.
Vodka is one of those more recent things. Like that whole Harry's Bar, Savoy Bar thing would not have used vodka. And when they presented the Greyhound in the first kind of compendium of drinks, they were like, oh, it's one of those grapefruit drinks. So I guess the grapefruit drinks were like a popular thing. Who knows? Wonderful. So they have the vodka Greyhound, which this is, right?
Yes.
She's got a pinched nerve in her neck.
I know. I have like a weird pinched nerve.
Fast living.
Yeah, fast living. We're gonna slow it down with this drink.
So then we've got the salty dog, which is the salty version.
Which I would have been totally fine if you were like, hey, let's throw a salty dog in there.
I know, but then you told me that we had to go on a starvation diet, and I was like, let's try
I'm currently starving myself.
So yeah, full disclosure,
so my eye starts twitching or something. It's because I haven't
you're starving
in a week.
Your electrolytes are way down. We are filming a bunch of episodes so that I can actually crisscross the country with my darling boy.
Yes.
So I'm going to have some slow travel. And so this is a perfect...
You're not taking Greyhound, are you?
I could. I might as well. I mean, it's going to feel that way.
It's going to feel like that way.
I think we each have stories of Greyhound adventure. But first, let me go through the last of the versions.
Yes, please.
So you've got the salty dog. You've got the Dalmatian. Now, this is disgusting.
Ew.
The Dalmatian uses black pepper syrup.
Ew, what even is that? Have you ever even
No,
seen that?
I haven't, but now I think we need to.
Oh yeah,
Right?
we're gonna
I mean,
have
that's
a
so
Dalmatian
disgusting.
night.
Dalmatian, ew. Because ew, and our teeth would probably like we'd probably get like spots in our teeth. Would be like, ew, look, it's Dalmatian. Like,
I mean, it's not like the Vietnamese salt and pepper.
No, though
calamari or
though
what
I would
is
love
it?
that. That'd be really, you
Yeah.
know, you want to think of a pairing that would go well with this?
Yeah.
That is it. The salt and pepper
Yeah, see,
calamari.
I'm starving, and all I do is
There
talk
you
about
go.
food.
And then there's the Italian Greyhound, which uses Campari instead of.
Oh,
you know,
see,
which
I might like that.
well, yeah,
I probably would like that.
Okay, honestly, least favorite drink so far. Pretty much, right?
Yeah,
so
pretty much
anything would make this better.
The other drink that was definitely. I wasn't a huge fan of the Dark and Stormy.
The Dark and Stormy wasn't even that. No, the one that was really, really bad was Death in the Afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, did we even publish that one? I don't even think we put that one out.
Yeah, I think that one's still dead.
That one died
That
somewhere.
one died some afternoon.
Shit, I need to look that one up.
We did do that one.
I don't know where it went.
Yeah, well, that'll be one of those little, one of those like sneak peek treats of early days of Creative Happy Hour.
All of a sudden, I'm feeling kind of like confused about this whole thing.
Every time I'm like, when episode comes
I know,
out,
you're like, which one is that?
I was like,
so
what?
I know. It's always this sense of wonder and novelty. it has to do with that. Well, it's due to the delayed gratification.
Oh, yes.
See, of our creative output.
Yes.
It takes us that long to put it up. So then when it comes out, we're like, ooh, So
I'm sure said that.
Right? I know, we're so smart. We're so freaking smart. Like, I love that. I love that sense of novelty that comes when you're separated from, your creative output. I mean, for me, when I write a book, and then people will be like, well, how did it feel to write that? I'm like, I don't actually really remember writing.
Well, I remember just even in college where I put so much effort into writing a paper or doing a project. And then I really had this strong feeling of, or taking an exam. Yeah. Taking an exam. Mm-hmm. I would put all my effort into it. And then once it was turned in, I would walk away and people would be freaking out. Yeah, they would be freaking out. I'd be like, you can't unring the bell. It's gone. Just let it go.
It's gone.
And that's how I live my life.
That's how I live my life too. That's why we get along.
That's why you and I are friends. Yeah. No, it's true. It's like, what are you going to do about it now?
Nothing.
You just move on.
Shall we? So before we talk about why to delay gratification, what fast creativity is these days, and why it's good to not succumb to it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you have a Greyhound story. I mean, I have a Greyhound story, and I bet you do. So.
Yeah, I do have a Greyhound story.
Go on. I'm all ears.
So when I was probably like 15 or 16. I grew up.
That would have been a scary situation.
It was scary.
Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And I went to, I think I rode down to Decatur, Alabama with stay with my cousins because I had aunts and uncles and cousins in Decatur, Alabama. And so I rode down, I think, with my family, but then I wanted to stay for a couple weeks and hang out with my cousins.
Oh, because Decatur is so much fun.
I mean, it was a blast. Yeah, it's a blast when you're like 16 because you just go out with your cousins and their weird friends and their weird accents.
Whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just, you skateboard and drink beer and, do weird.
That's what I was going to ask you, what does one do in Decatur? Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what we did. We made, grasshoppers in the the blender.
We should make those. Now that we have our slushy machine.
We should do
which
that.
we still haven't broken out. Like, this is very disappointing. When I get back.
It's collecting dust.
Okay, when I get back, it's going to be full on summer, and I'm going to have slushy
we're going to be doing daiquiris.
We're going to do 4 slushy recipes in a row.
We're going slush.
So
slush masters.
Full slush.
We're going the full slush.
Okay, sorry. So you're on the Greyhound bus.
Yeah, so I decided to stay a couple weeks longer.
So who decided that you would take the Greyhound?
I would never let my 16-year-old take a Greyhound bus, but my dad was like, well, if you're going to stay, then you're going to have to.
That's what you do when there's no option.
There was no option.
So interesting, right?
There was no option. Right? Like, my parents were going to pick me up.
Final resort.
I had never been on an airplane because we didn't,
do that. Your people didn't do that.
We didn't do stuff like that. And so I was like, I think I had, $50 left to spend. And
Sounds like a Greyhound situation.
So I was like, I remember my cousin taking me to the Greyhound station, and it was sketchy.
It is super scary.
Sketchy.
No, I mean, it's so weird because you have that whole,
and it took forever.
The Greyhound logo is so kind of cool and retro, and the buses, they kind of like silver bullet type, but just like Coors, not that classy. Right. And I remember taking Greyhound. So, okay, so you're on the Greyhound. Did you have any...
and there was just all kinds of lunatic desperate
Oh,
people
yeah, that's what
on
it
the
is.
Greyhound.
It's the dregs.
Yeah, it was just these people that were like, yeah, I mean, I think someone even like tried to borrow money from me at one point, and I was like, I'm 16.
Yeah.
I don't have any money. I'm never going to see you again.
Yeah, and if I had money,
like,
would I be here? Probably
no,
not.
I would
Not
give you
happening.
like an Ambien, so you would go to sleep and
That
leave
didn't
me
exist
alone,
yet.
but they didn't have them. So
that didn't exist yet.
Yeah, I just remember like, how the hell did I get on this bus?
Right. You're like, what brought me
how
here?
am I gonna? And I have to go all the way to Cincinnati,
Yes.
and that is not.
You're stuck.
That's a long ass.
How long
ride.
was the trip?
Oh God! I mean, I think it was at least 24 hours.
Oh, that sucks.
It was so fucking long.
That sucks.
It was so long,
Oh,
and I was scared for my life. Like we would pull into a station, and I'd be like, yeah. Not getting off the bus.
No, it's kind of like fear and trembling. I mean, it's
just,
just
like fear and trembling.
It really is.
Especially a young woman.
Oh my God, yeah. So I used to take the Greyhound bus regularly.
Oh, Jesus.
Because my parents hated me. And, so I was like the only...
They were trying to get you murdered.
Oh my God, I was the only bitch from Greenwich who didn't have a car at school. And so I was at UNC Chapel Hill. Which to me was like the biggest...
I have family that lives there too.
Holy shit. Biggest culture shock. Because I was in denial. I skipped most of my classes. I barely went. I mean, it was crazy. I was in denial the whole entire time.
That's a great town though. I don't know.
Was it?
Well, like I went and stayed with some cousins in Chapel Hill too, and I went to some parties.
Sure. Yeah, the parties were fun. Out. See... Again, I was a terrible individual. I basically was very destructive and very, very inventive.
So the Greyhound kind of resonated with.
Yeah, it did. It did. And so my parents would be like, you have to go see your grandmother for the weekend. If they, I'd be like, fine. And she lived in Greensboro, which any town that ends in B-O-R-O, they can't even spell borough properly. And I'm like, ooh, redneck. Yeah. And so she lived there and I would have to take the Greyhound.
Was this your mom's mom?
Hell no, that was my dad's mom.
Your dad's mom.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And I mean, and I swear, like going to North Carolina, first of all, biggest culture shock ever. I mean, I had grown up in Greenwich, Connecticut with all the, spoiled white bitches. Yeah. And I've been, in France and everything else. And so I get to Chapel Hill and they're like, you look like you're straight out of Europe. And I was like, oh, wow, Europe with one syllable. That's awesome. Europe. That is awesome. And, so I would have to take this bus because I had no money.
At least.
It's very creative. I had no money. I had no nothing. And I would get on. And there was one stop right after where I would get on where there was there was a jail. So one of the stops was a jail. Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's your typical thing with the Greyhound. Like, we'd get on and the guys who were just getting out of jail would get put on the bus,
And then you would be like in their scope of
like you'd see them walking down the aisle and you're like,
they'd be looking at you like a juicy,
not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. And then they had
That's when you want to have Mace.
Fucking Fiona. I should have had Fiona back then.
Yeah, she would have.
She would have been great.
She would have cut somebody.
Right? She would have been like... So there was an asylum of some kind, some mental institution.
Oh, great.
Of course, along the way. So you would have these orderlies putting people on the bus. Okay, if the dog would...
Sending them
I'm going to go nuts too, like right now with this dog barking. And I don't care. I'm not going to edit
Fiona?
it out because I've had it.
Enough.
We're sick of you.
There's nothing
She's not even
vicious.
a Greyhound. She's like a black and white hound. She's not even
Greyhound.
There's
nothing vicious in Larkspur.
Nothing. So you would get on and there'd be these people, these orderlies putting people on the bus. Half of them still wearing like their hospital gowns because probably they were admitted when they were like, they'd either shot themselves or like ripped their clothes off. I don't know. These people would get on the bus and you're like, oh my God. And obviously the bus is packed.
Yeah, but where are they going? They're going to Grandma's house?
I guess to Grandma's house they go. I mean, I have no idea where these people... It's like, this is the last resort, right?
Yeah, it is. And it is the last resort.
It is. And this was before we had any, we didn't have our phones to play on or anything like that. So you'd either have to stare at these people or try to like, ignore them or try, something. So it would make these stories up about who they were and all this stuff. But it was crazy. It was a time. And you know what, though? When I think about it, I go, wow, that was so interesting to be stuck somewhere. And we'll, probably be reflecting on this again, but just you're stuck with these people. You're going much more slowly than you would want to. You have to make these stops.
You're just like, get me out of this as fast as possible.
Right. But so that's, okay, so how does that relate to creativity? Because we live in an era of instant gratification creativity. We have apps like you want to create a piece of digital art. You've got an app that can cheat for you so that you can have it made right away. You know, do you want to write something? You've got apps like Wattpad where basically you write this little short story of fan fiction. You've got millions of people.
And it probably gives you recommendations and suggestions.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're missing some kind of take your time and reflect and really get deeper involved in your creative project, whatever it is.
Totally.
I think, you know, you hear about some people that, well, I mean, I've read books where people have like, oh yeah, they researched that book for 10 years.
Right. And I think that that's great. Like, and those people get mocked now.
Yeah.
Like now I know so many people are like, I wrote a book, and I'm like, did you? And they're like, yeah, I fed all these things that, into this, app, and it spat out this thing, and then somebody helped me to correct it. And then, I barely had to do anything. I did it really fast. I wrote a book in 24 hours. And I'm like, that's not a book that I want to read.
No.
That is not,
no.
What I want is somebody who suffered. Like, first of all, I want to know that you suffered, not because I'm some kind of a sadist, but because you have to have those challenges to your creativity.
You do.
To go further, I mean, it's...
Well, you don't get anything really very meaningful out of something that you don't start. Yeah, I mean, you just don't.
No,
I mean, I feel like anything that is interesting has gone through some kind of intense struggle or
a process, something. Absolutely. And we talk about this guy repeatedly who had his work, destroyed every time he wrote something.
Right.
And, and then it comes out, and it comes out so much more powerful. And even our buddy, Stephen Pressfield, he talks about all of these obstacles and the, fighting, because the thing that happens if everything's handed to you, then the excuses become so much more powerful because it's just so damn easy. If you're not fighting to create, you're fighting not to create.
Right.
Because it's almost too easy. It's just
at the same time, I do think there's been times in my life where my creative process isn't something that, I mean, I think we talked about that with David Lee Roth when he talks about, it took us, 3 minutes or 18 minutes to write, I don't know, on what level you want to call Running with the Devil art. You don't know if you want to call it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, if it's considered high art.
Okay, when you were in the throes of your pod crush, lady.
Yeah.
You were like, oh my God, it's so genius.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of, I think there's different spectrums for what you're spending time on for a creative project or process, and I think, so, you can have this conversation in many different ways. However, I think, it kind of goes back to what he was saying about, that 18 minutes wasn't, technically it was 18 minutes, but it was a long-term build-up of the process and the character of who these people were, what they were all bringing to the table. And I think it's the same, I think I was telling you, or maybe it wasn't you.
Shit.
I don't know. I haven't eaten in a week. So
she's really tired.
Yeah.
Getting skinnier and more.
No, I'm not getting, unfortunately that happens. But next episode, I might. Oh,
it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I might look like Skeletor.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's going to be scary. We're going to have to readjust the camera.
We'll have to do like the Grateful Dead art or something.
Oh my God, we will. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll just do our Kiss. We'll paint our faces like Kiss and we'll.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. It'll be good. Yeah, it'll work. But there's a delayed gratification to that whole weight loss thing too. We'll deal with it.
So it's like every day is a delayed gratification.
Exactly. But I'm thinking about in terms of like art and writing, I look at people. So I look at the people on Wattpad, or I look at Picasso, who would freaking scribble off some bullshit on a menu and be like, ta-da, you know. And then I look at somebody like, the author Donna Tartt, who took 10 years to write each of her books.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, okay, I think that you can detect that process that went into writing that for so long. I mean, I think there's definitely a huge difference between, one of those books and something that was written in a space of a few weeks. Now, does that necessarily mean it's going to appeal to more people? Not necessarily, but I think that for her, she has much more of a feeling of like, I've achieved this and I've done this, and like that reward of going through the process, I think is major. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've only read, I read the Goldfinch.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I loved it.
Because I read The Secret History a long time ago, and then I started reading the Goldfinch.
I loved the Goldfinch.
I have to revisit the Goldfinch.
What is the one? The friend?
The little friend? No, the little friend?
Secret Friend or that Little Friend? I don't know what it is, but I tried reading that one and it didn't resonate with me at all.
Which is fine too. I think that we have this whole thing of like when these books come out and you hear that somebody wrote it and it took 10 years, you're like, I better really love it. And you don't necessarily, but it's just,
I read this guy, what's his name? Alexander Masik. Mm-hmm. And I think he's actually writes in French and English. You probably know him.
Okay. I have this a big problem with dates.
I mean, he's like a Europa published.
Europa,
Yeah, and I love reading those because I feel like they're so much more complex.
Yes, and they appeal to, they're so multicultural in a way. Yeah. Like they have that appeal.
But you would love his books. I
may well have read one.
I want to say it's Alexander. There's one, gosh. I'm trying to remember. Anyway,
Gratification.
I'll think of his books and I'll tell you next episode.
Maybe, or next.
No, but I read I picked it up in the library, his newest book. It was something to do, it was all written about kind of in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of him and his girlfriend and they ended up, I don't know if they completed a murder, but it was a guy that was abusing women. And
Charming.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds like a real feel-good kind of book.
This woman killed the guy and went to prison and but I went back and read, I loved his writing so much that I went back and read all of his books and I saw all of his progress as a writer, which I never do that. I never do that.
Cool. That's pretty cool. And you put in the time to do that, which I love that. So not only do you put in the time sometimes to produce something, but sometimes when we put in the time to consume something. Yeah. And I kind of love that when somebody goes and says, this piece of music is really intriguing. For example, let me go back and listen to everything that composer has done or everything this musician has played and how, but I think that what I've observed in that is that you do observe a general kind of progression, a general amelioration of their skills. But once in a while, there's that moment where, boom, it's like genius. Yeah. And you're like, how did that happen? Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast because we were driving, talking about slow bus. Like I'm planes, trains, and automobiles. I'm going to funerals galore every other day these days, which is not very fun. But when we're in the car, now I'm really happy to be in the car because I'm like, podcast.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So fun. So much better than before. I mean, that's progress right there is podcast. Podcast progress. I love it. But we were listening to a podcast about what creates, what makes for a creative, jump, what really, promotes creativity. And it's that obstacle. And so they were talking about all these instances where various creatives had, these obstacles thrown in their way. And so they were talking about Brian, who was helping Genesis and all of them, a bunch of different bands to get better. And he would make them switch instruments. And he would, apparently Phil Collins tossed his beer can at the dude. And I'm like, Phil Collins, such a pussy ass chicken shit, threw his beer can.
He had enough.
Right? That's a lot. I was like, wow, that's a lot of, frustration, but it brings the best out of people. Yeah. And also the other interesting thing, so that was it was that obstacle and the delayed gratification of being like, I don't have that perfect tool that makes it easy for me to create properly. Yeah. And all of a sudden you get to that level above. But also they were talking about slow multitasking when it comes to creativity, because I believed for a long time that you could not multitask, except I saw that I multitask all the damn time. Yeah. As a creative,
you can't avoid it if you're a busy mom.
You can't avoid it if you're a busy mom, but even as a creative or an entrepreneur, you find yourself working on various projects. And sometimes it's crazy making, and sometimes it's like, this seems like it makes sense. And I was like, what's the difference? And they were talking about the slow multitasking. That's the difference. When you're rushing, so when you're rushing from thing to thing, that's not gonna work out well, right? You're freaking out. No, and I know that, because I freak out too. I mean, I had one of those days, and I'm like, and you end up just shaky and pissed off. But when you're doing slow multitasking, you realize that you have an obstacle somewhere, right? So you're like, oh, my gratification for this is going to be delayed because of whichever factor, right? I don't have the right tool right now and I need to wait for it, or inspiration's not coming and, whatever, or I'm tired, or I hurt my hand that I'm supposed to be playing this instrument with. What can I work on concurrently?
In the meantime, still
but really giving
contribute to it.
Exactly. But like giving it that full importance, and I talk about this in my book about writer's block, where I say, what can you do when you have writer's block? You can work on other things, but that further your general identity as an artist, a creative, and a writer. And that's the same thing for a creative entrepreneur or a creative. If this painting's not working, if I don't have the right color for this one, or if I don't have, well, let me go varnish this one, or let me go work on this, or let me go read something. But really slowly and taking your time and telling yourself that this is time that I've somehow managed to kind of sneak away. It's like, I think, and just like the Greyhound, like I kind of feel like the Greyhound bus is this moment in time where like you're stuck.
You're stuck, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of be self-reflective about where you stand in that
giant human comedy.
In that giant human comedy, which you're not laughing about when you're on the Greyhound bus.
Not when you're on the Greyhound, you're not. No, you're
Wouldn't that be cool if like they had creative happy hour like plastered on the side of the Greyhound bus?
That'd be so cool. We can see that. That's like a growth mindset. Let's visualize that. What I mean, that would be so valuable, right? Like for people who are taking the Greyhound bus, I mean, this is like, they'd be thrilled to have creative happy hour. Like if they have free Wi-Fi on the Greyhound now, they could listen to
Creative Happy Hour. And it wouldn't be so bad.
They'd feel understood.
Yeah, they'd feel like, good. Oh,
they'd feel so good. Well, speaking of feeling so good, okay, so I was listening. So one of the theories about the delayed gratification of creativity is actually tied. So the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon, what's his name?
Yeah, I've read that book.
Napoleon.
I haven't read it. Yeah.
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah,
his name's Napoleon. You've heard of it. You've read it.
No, I've read, what do you call it?
Skimmed it. You've skimmed it. You've skimmed Think and Grow Rich.
God knows it's been in everybody's house.
Everywhere.
Everybody's house. You go somewhere for a dinner party, and it's at their house. It's all crusty on their shelf.
I know.
And you end up pulling it out.
Right? Pulling out
again. Don't pull out. No, where that gets
you were seriously on the right track, because actually Napoleon Hill of Think and Grow Rich, and if we were all
when you say Napoleon, I always want to think Napoleon Dynamite. But
I know, or Napoleon Complex is what I think. But he
or Bonaparte.
Yeah, or Bonaparte's. So anyway, I always go to the
we covered all the bones.
All the bones.
All the bones.
So
all the Napoleons.
If every single person actually read his freaking book, which I think is a bestseller for a reason, because the dude kind of broke things down.
Yeah.
Very psychologically. If we'd all read it and we all thought about it, maybe we would have grown rich by now. But we didn't. So we haven't. But it's fine. But he was talking about that whole delayed delayed gratification. And he really was tying it to this sex thing. He's like, every single thing is about sex. Like sales is about sex. Making money is about sex. Creativity, like everything you do, like the drive.
Don't you feel like
sex.
Every marketing company in the entire United States completely lobbed onto that?
Totally.
And because everything, they try to make everything sexy.
All of it.
Everything is sexy.
Everything's sexy. Which I also think that making everything sexy is kind of that same thing that's trying to make everything easy and fast.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the same program.
Right. But what Napoleon Hill says differently is that he says that delayed gratification of that sexual urge is what makes you hone your craft and try to, make yourself more creative. Like when you can control that power, you can control that desire and try to focalize it on something else.
Yeah, it's the same concept of Tantra.
Yeah.
Tantra is all about
breath and waiting.
It's about gathering the energy and channeling the energy and not just letting it dissipate by having an orgasm.
Exactly.
It's all about like running the energy up and down. It is. It's all about that's gonna be a good short.
That's gonna be we're not gonna.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We're not even gonna do as a short. I'll just extend it so it's just nonstop. No, but I like that analogy that you've put to the Tantra, because it is so true that creative energy is the same way, right? You take that energy in. If you spit that energy out right away, your creative production is just not that abundant.
Yeah, and that's what they say. I mean, they kind of make that like sexual energy is the creative life force.
Completely.
And therefore...
And last time we talked about the male and the female creative energy, so we're just taking it one step further. Yeah. Sad that we had to have such a shitty drink to do it with.
Little drink.
Nasty ass little Greyhound. But that's okay, whatever. But no, I like that whole concept of delaying that so that you can use that energy and explore the energy. Yeah. And try to see, where else that energy takes you.
See how far you can take it.
Exactly.
Before it manifests.
Exactly.
Into whatever it's going to be. And I think, if you look at when someone is first courting you. I know I just used courting.
Courting.
In modern times.
She grew up, with these people who are courting all her cousins, her cousin husbands and her. Yeah. According they will go. You should go to the wild parties.
According
barn dances. Barn dances and courting.
But
side hugs.
Like when you were first
dating.
dating. Yeah. And everybody puts a lot of energy into, before you close the sale with your partner.
Oh yeah.
You're doing all of these things to create mystery and to create like some kind of attractive forces, and you're wearing your nicest clothes and your perfume, and you're trying to lose some weight, and if you're not, you should be. And I'm not a weight loss coach.
No.
But yeah, I think it's that time where you're putting a lot of creative energy into manifesting some kind of final result, right?
Yes,
and it does, and there's a delayed gratification in that. Although, these days I feel like, you can just swipe and you're like, next. And I think
that's what happens,
I think people admit, I think it creates a lot of emptiness and sadness about because there's no work in those things.
There's no work in any of it. And we were talking about the making of the art or the creativity versus the consuming of it.
Right.
And that dating analogy was really the same thing, because you put no effort in and there's no effort coming out of it. Like people don't respect. And also there's just this giant choice. There's all this noise out there because there's too
many choices.
There's too many choices because so much is being produced.
Yeah,
because it takes no work at all.
Yeah,
people are just like that standard that people used to have. It used to be like, oh, I can't possibly go out for a date because my hair looks like shit, or I didn't, get dressed, or I need to make myself pretty.
Or you called me too soon.
Or you didn't say the right things, or you were a little bit too forward. And now it's just like some dude sends you a dick pic within 3 seconds, and you're like, either
sure, come over.
Sure, yeah. I mean, but it's crazy like that. The creative parallel to that is frightening as well. It's just this, like, I mean, I talk often and in really bad terms about the Instagram poets.
Yeah,
and these fuckers.
I know. I've been reading more of their poetry because.
Okay, please tell me what you think. Because
I mean, I'm unrequited all the fucking time.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, right? I'm just like it's like you get dropped on the floor. I have head injuries. I feel like
psychic brain injuries from the stupid Instagram poets. But they get, the sad thing is that these Instagram poets put in zero effort. I mean, come on. I'm sorry. Like, there's no effort. You can tell. But what they get out is that some of these people who have zero, like, it's so bad. These people who have no, standards whatsoever are like, oh my God, they're so brilliant. They're so awesome.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad.
All of our standards have been
dropping.
Because there's too much. There's too many people in the pool.
Yeah, it's the noise, it's the distractions. We're also told we don't have the time. So we're also like, okay, no, forget going around, forget exploring things, just get straight to the point. And that's something that, in business, that may be okay.
I think that's one of the things that I don't like about Twitter is I don't
condensing
like
things down.
I don't like the condensed version. Sometimes it's necessary, right? I mean, my daughter makes fun of me because I will actually write out a text like, hey, how are you doing today?
It's me.
Yeah. I was wondering if you wanted me to bring, tortilla chips to the party.
Yeah.
And I'll spell out you and I'll spell out.
You're so lame.
Yeah. I'll spell everything out for real in proper English. And my daughter's like, Mom,
English. I'm all about
that's not the point of texting.
You're like, okay, you little philosopher / sociologist of texting. I mean, give me a goddamn break, kid.
I was like, just because all of you people are lowering your grammatical standards to just like little info bites.
It's great. And that's the other thing. Like in France, so many people in France do not know how to spell anymore. They don't know how to do grammar properly. Like in English, our grammar and our spelling are easier, but we're still making ourselves stupid because we're still simplifying. But in France, it's a little more complicated. And people push all the time. They're like, oh, can we make a movement so that we can say, let's simplify the spelling, let's simplify the grammar. And I think that's so sad because I think that the challenge of the language is what makes people write these beautiful sentences. You know, in English, we don't have the melodious quality that you would have in French or Italian to our language. You know what I mean? And so people don't spend time honing that, whereas in France they did, and then all this segment of the population is saying, no, just cut it out, forget it.
Well, I mean, we might end up going to like a symbol writing, like, you know.
We were talking about the Egyptians last time. We're going to be right back to hieroglyphics.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like we're going backwards. Like it's going to be pictograms.
But we are going to pictograms. I mean, think of the emojis. Yeah. Think of the emojis. Like, people don't even want to type like, hi, I'm laughing, or that's so funny anymore. They're like, face, you know.
Yeah.
It's not even LOL. LOL is too much. You have to find the emoji. Though, okay, so one thing that makes me a little bit happier is that we have this whole system of like, you know, the animated responses, like, you know, the GIFs, which to me is a little gift every time. I'm like, these are awesome because at least I feel like this is slightly more, you know, I don't know how to describe it.
You feel like it's more alive?
It's more alive. Yeah. It's more alive. It's like a little bit like there's more to it.
There's more charge to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just this simplified emoji.
Yeah.
It's now this thing that's moving and that's, you know, there's an interaction with it. There's expressions you can see.
Well, when you're a complex creative, I mean, an emoji doesn't always.
It doesn't do it. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't. I have to combine them in weird ways.
Yeah.
And people are like, what the hell?
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's
I mean, I'm probably the only one that uses the croissant emoji, you know?
This friend of mine was trying to. It's like. So my friend the other day was trying to express that she had diarrhea, and she's like, okay, here's the poo emoji. She's like, well, I actually have like a lumpy. She's like, I have a lumpy diarrhea. So it's like part diarrhea, part lumpy.
So what did she do?
So she's like, how do I do this? And I was like, this is so good. So first, she's like, I can't find the poo emoji. What the hell? Because she doesn't have an iPhone. Yeah. She has one of those stupid. So I sent her the poo. I was like, just type out poo, and the poo emoji pops up. I mean, again, this is how language is, you know, like we don't have to look for the emoji. Like it pops up. And she's like, well, mine's not working. So she's sending me a hazel. I was like, you have a hazelnut emoji?
How the hell does she have a hazelnut?
She had a small potato emoji. And I was like,
oh, yeah, we have a small potato.
She had a coconut emoji. And she's doing all these different ones. And I'm just dying. And I finally went into like the animated shit where I was doing all the like diarrhea.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like,
you send me that shit all the time.
It makes me laugh so much. Like there's nothing like shit to make me crack up. And that to me is like, you know what it is? The shit humor. The joking about bodily function is something that has been honed for centuries.
Oh, yeah, okay? It has.
This is, like, you talk about crass humor. It's not. There's a level of sophistication because we have been honing the shit joke
forever.
For centuries. And I freaking like, it's like the yo mama joke.
Yeah,
which,
it is.
You know, it has been around since Shakespeare. And the shit joke even longer because we've been shitting since time immemorial. I freaking love it. There's like, that is a slow brewing joke. And I think that is very awesome.
It is. I mean, it's a little shitty.
It's a little shitty, but it's really funny. I think that we have, so we have the whole thing about how.
We want to talk about kind of the benefits of taking things slow. I mean, there's all kinds of examples in the creative world. I mean, I think I was talking about there's a slow clothing movement.
There's slow food. Yeah. There's slow living. There's slow clothing. And I think that you're so right that people are like, forget the disposable, forget the fast, forget the fast forward, forget the, accelerated. Yeah. So which of those slow movements do you kind of, identify with most? Which of them speaks to you most?
I mean, I definitely like the slow food movement.
I like the slow food movement.
I think it taps into that process of eating food that is harvested during the season that is actually seasonal. Supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also that you kind of learn about where it comes from.
You learn where it comes
storytelling,
from.
Which is going to be one of our next episodes is about storytelling.
Yes.
I think that absorbing that whole story about something. Right?
Yeah. And yeah, and it gives you some, I think all of us seem to have the experience of a really good story or being connected to something it makes it so much more interesting to experience. So
right, but also the slow movement, like the slow food, for example. So you know that somebody planned out where they were growing things and when they were growing them with the seasons. Then they harvested that thing.
Yeah.
Then they made sure that that thing got to you in some way that's not some shrink wrapped, you know, whatever, like some farmer's market, something where you're interacting with people and
you
having
can
this
feel
experience.
the essence of the humanness behind it. You
very
don't,
much so, yeah.
You don't, you know, it's like when you get like a bag of Doritos, you know, quickly at the gas station.
There's
a time and place for it.
At the Greyhound station.
There's a time and place for like a pack of Camel Lights.
Oh, totally.
A bag of Doritos and a Diet Coke.
That's the Greyhound station. That's exactly
at the Greyhound station. Now, I didn't know you could get one of these tasty nuggets.
You could before, not anymore.
Yeah,
see, you know, times have changed. Times are changing.
I mean, there's like a whole time and place for that.
Absolutely.
But I think there's something about like getting, you know, the organic coffee with the like the coffee cake that was made by Linda at her, you know, goat farm in Napa. You know,
I love to hear that shit. I love to hear like
she collaborated with Jim, who, you know,
down the
made
street,
the buttermilk for the recipe.
I love that shit.
So-and-so who made like some exotic cinnamon.
Exactly. Like that's
dust.
Exactly it. Like I love the
cinnamon sugar dust.
Right?
Yeah. So there's something about like
the provenance and the inspiration and the execution and the collaboration.
You can taste the art. I mean, I really think
even if we couldn't, we think we can, and that's good enough for me.
And psychologically it's interesting. It makes your life more artful and more expressive and colorful. And I live for that shit. And
I do too.
Same with like the slow clothing movement. You know, it's like when you know, the sheep that the wool was spun from, and the, you know, there's something about like, oh, that one vest or that one poncho that I have.
Absolutely. It's more special. It's more like
it is
one of my.
It's one of a kind.
Absolutely, and I love the one of the kind thing. I mean, I traveled to China to see about production because I used to have a shop, and I was interested in how that worked, and it grossed me out so much.
Horrified.
I was horrified, and I was like, okay, from now on, I'm either going to not buy much, or I'm just going to try to get things that are more one of a kind or more unique or whatever. And I have secondhand. Yeah. So I have a friend, Tanas, who does Buy Tanas. She does this line of clothing that she goes to Goodwill and she'll find these shirts, mostly shirts right now. And the shirts, they all kind of have a story, right? You know, it's lived its life. It might be a little stretched out, or it might have this thing. And then she has quite a big couture collection of things that she gets tired of. And again, because even like designer clothes these days are so fast fashion. Like
they are.
So she deconstructs those and she'll add these details to these Goodwill shirts. And then
she kind of embellishes.
She completely embellishes it, remakes it, and she makes it really high fashion and really special and one of a kind. And I think it's such a lovely concept. And actually I'll pop up a couple pictures.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I'd love to see her stuff. Does she ever do shows? Or
she does not yet do shows, but if you look at her Instagram, and I'll pop that up here too, it's at Buy Tanas, and it's wonderful. And my kids each have one of her pieces, and they think it's very special. They love to wear them because that story to them, and the fact that, and she's always telling me, oh, I need to find somebody to manufacture because I'm sewing everything by hand. And I'm like, Tanas, don't you see that
I'll work in her sweatshop.
I mean, right? Yeah. Seriously. I was like, don't you see that the fact that you're sewing these things yourself is what makes them so special?
It makes them more special.
It really does. Like, I don't care if there's a missed stitch. That's not the point.
I have the same issue though. I mean, I've made some really cool knitted bags that I've sewn fabric into and put like cool metal handles on and like really trippy yarn and done some really funky stuff. And I can see the imperfections. And then I feel that makes me,
I like the imperfections.
I mean, it's more wabi-sabi, right?
Much more so, which I love. Yes.
So, and that you can never repeat that particular piece.
Right.
It's one of a kind.
Right.
And there's something really artful about that.
Completely. But also the problem is, as a creative entrepreneur, how do you then price that? Because it's so hard to say, I actually spent all this time on it, and I actually had to source this, and it took me
It's
forever.
not scalable.
It's not scalable. But you have to have that conviction to say, you know what? It actually took me a really long time to make this. And yeah, maybe the materials alone don't add up to this. Or maybe what it looks like alone doesn't add up to this. But like, this is a piece of art.
Yeah.
Can you pay for the fact that it took me this time? It was this whole process.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like a painting is the same thing. I mean, you don't know, you know, you don't know how long it took. But when you have the sense that it took a really long time, you feel like putting more into it. And that's a really interesting, you know, it's like one of our friends of the podcast, FOPs. Friends of podcast.
Friend of FOP.
FOPs. Our friend Linda, who we mention a lot, who's an artist, she often says that it takes her years to make a painting, and then somebody will order a painting from her, and it'll come a little bit sooner, and they're like, oh, but I thought you said it took years. And she's like, well, it does take years to do an original. She goes, but when you ask me for another swan, or you ask me for another, you know, mask that I've done before, she's like, well, then that whole process, part of the process is cut out.
Yeah.
And she's like, but there's still that whole history behind it that has built up to where I can create it a little bit faster.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think I've said this on another podcast where when I first started to learn how to knit socks, it took me a really long time to find a pattern that was clear and understandable enough for me to do it. And then I knitted socks. I must have done that pattern 50 times. And then it got to the point where I was like, I finally got it. Yeah. And then I could knit socks without looking at the pattern.
Right. But which there was crazy. All that, but that was the process. And that was the obstacle.
It took a really long time for me to understand it, screw it up multiple times, rip out the yarn, and do it again.
Screwing things up is a major part of that whole creative journey. And, you know, just like, you know, Greyhound has screwed up a lot of what they do. I think that, you know, and at the end of the day, they're still
I'm not jumping on a Greyhound anytime soon, as long as, I hope
God, knock on something.
Knock on someone.
I mean, I know, but look, it's a brand that's still around. It's a brand that's still in existence. It's something that people need. They need that slow travel. Like, not everybody can do it or wants to do the fast travel. Yeah. And it's quite interesting. I mean, so I'm thinking in conclusion, one time I was on my Greyhound bus trying to avoid all the jailbirds. And this girl comes out of one of the institutions. She comes onto the bus wearing this full-on, you know, robe, you know, whatever she's wearing from they must have given it to her. She had nothing. And she's talking loud, and she gets on the bus. I'm like, don't sit next to me. Don't sit. Yeah. And that chick sits next to me, of course, because, you know, it's always for me. And she starts singing. And I'm thinking at the time, because I was probably 20, something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's fucking singing. But really, you know what? That chick was singing amazingly. And if I had been today, if I'd gone through that whole creative process that I've gone through by now, I think that I would have spoken to her more. Like, I would have enjoyed that whole weird thing, you know.
She would have had her on creative happy hour.
She would have. She would have been that. Right? Just like that. I mean, I think that, you know, let's value those people who are on the slow bus with us. Let's value those little creative teammates that we, you know, pick up along the way, like it or not. I think that that's
let's see what they have to offer. I mean, you know, you kind of there. I mean, I don't know who said it, but I mean, somebody said it, but you know, I often think that you're in situations sometimes and you don't necessarily know why you're there. I mean, other than the fact that you have to get somewhere and you don't have any money and you're in a situation, but sometimes one thing leads to another and it was meant for you to be there.
And give yourself the time to experience it and to wonder, what am I doing? What does this mean? And what am I going to bring out of it? Yeah. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. So, you know, there you go.
Yeah, even fine wines. I mean, they take time to, you know,
unlike the Greyhound, which is,
you know,
kind of, you know, iffy forever.
Yeah. But it's still around.
It's still around.
You know, it's something to think about. Yeah.
There you go. So if you guys have anything to say about creativity and the fast creativity and the slow and the delayed gratification and the instant gratification, and, you know, if you're pissed off at me because you work for Wattpad and I keep trashing you guys in every other episode.
And if you're a Greyhound bus driver and you want to be on the show,
comment please.
We'll make you a Greyhound and we'll talk about all the cool stuff that you...
We love it. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the little bell, do all that good stuff.
We need you.
We need you. We need you so bad. Be those people on the Greyhound bus with us.
Do it.
The Greyhound bus of creativity.
We're not that weird. Okay, we're kind of weird. We're weird. We're weird.
Cheers, you guys.
Yes.